big story that we're focusing on this evening. In a big move to improve the ease of doing business for the real estate industry, the central government has worked out a new set of green norms for construction. These norms are likely to come into force within the next couple of months. The norms will provide relief to real estate developers who earlier had to go through the tedious process of taking about 100 environment compliance clearances that will in some cases take up to 3 years. Faster clearances will bring down the cost of construction, which in turn could in fact bring down the prices of homes. We'll find out whether that's in fact possible on this show, but Deepa Rana sent us this report on the details of the new norms.
The central government has decided to relax environmental norms. Earlier, the developers had to comply to 100 norms, file them with the state and the center before they would receive their final environmental clearance. But now, the Urban Development Ministry and the Ministry of Environment have reduced these green norms and revised the green norms and brought them down to a maximum of 23 clearances. The new Green Building Code categorizes projects based on their size. The projects between 5,000 to 20,000 square meters will have to take 9 clearances. Projects between 20,000 square meters to 50,000 square meters will have to take 14 clearances. Projects between 50,000 square meters to 1,50,000 square meters will have to take 23 clearances. Now coming to the permissions which the developers will have to take includes solid waste management, rainwater harvesting, water drainage system, etc. Also, this will help in enhancing the process, as now the municipal corporations will be the ones giving permissions, which will help in quicker approvals and delivery of projects in time.
Well, in fact, our reporter also caught up with the Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar, who described these laws as being stringent and implementable. Let's listen in.
Thinking of government is to standardize environmental conditions and making them little more stringent and implementable, and then with that standard guidelines becoming the part of rule of the state government, then they can take permission from the corporation or the municipality wherever it is necessary, and the rules will bind them to follow the environmental norms. So that's a new pattern of thinking on which, so that they avoid one window and they will have ease of doing responsible business. So we will provide ease of doing responsible business. So there will be responsible business practices, environmental friendly practices, but they will be in a way automatic route.
So this will enhance the approvals and when municipal corporations are given and empowered, but will we see this in the budget, and also who will monitor whether these there are norms like 1 tree per 80 square meters and things like that. Who will monitor
that the corporation or the planning authority has to monitor it, but Environment Ministry will also have the right to monitor it and penalize if there is no compliance.
Alright, so the big question we're asking this evening is biz-friendly, also eco-friendly. What will the reaction be to these norms? And of course, if there is a benefit here for developers, is it a benefit that home buyers will eventually enjoy as well? Joining me in the studio, Boman Irani CMD at Rustomjee Group, Managing Director, Gera Developers joins us from Pune, Devi Goenka, Executive Trustee at the Conservation Action Trust, and Gautam Kirtane, Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us in the studio. Boman, I want to start with you. Obviously, if we're talking about the local municipality across all of our cities taking on this massive responsibility also of environment, are the municipalities equipped to handle something like this?
I think the municipalities are already doing enough in terms of what are the environment clearances required. All the conditions, I can speak for the Mumbai Municipal Corporation, all the requirements that are there in the Environment Act are already there in the Mumbai DCR. For instance, we always had sewage treatment plants to be there. We always had, a tree authority giving us tree approvals. So basically the same conditions were then being replicated at an environment body, which meant that double the work. And then there were certain differences in terms of what exactly is the environment authority supposed to do, and over here they came up with a slew of ideas. Something as simple as even the car parking was sometimes gone into after the traffic management study has been done by professionals. It gets cleared at your at the approval level, and then we bring it to environment. But sometimes these questions used to get asked, listen, why do you have to have 5 podiums, and why can't you just do it in 3, for instance? And then you have to try to explain to them that there's car parking norms. You have to see that cars don't slip up onto the roads.
So how will this be simpler then if you brought it down?
When the same body that is giving you the approvals is the same body that's also clearing your environment clearance for it. We've been through this exercise. They know exactly what's required. In terms of the words that we heard right now from the minister, I kept hearing the word stringent and penalization in case you're not following. This is more better monitored at ground level by the ULB rather than letting it go down or being monitored by somebody else. Too many people trying to take care of the same thing. It's actually
my question is still this: does the ULB have the bandwidth, Rohit? Where you've been on this channel in the past talking about the fact that local corporators have held permissions to ransom. Will this be one more thing that you'll have to wait for and fight for?
No, Faye, I don't think so. I think this is a fabulous move, and the most important aspect of it is once you know that the rules are clear and transparent, then you just have to implement it. Just as you have to implement rules for setbacks, for height and other things, these too will be implemented in the same manner. And the other thing, let's keep another thing in mind. The single biggest watchdog watching the developer and ensuring that things get done is now going to be the customer. Because if the customer knows what are the things that we are required to do and it's transparently available, then the customer will also be watching and ensuring that the environment norms are followed and he gets what is to be delivered by the developer in terms of the development control rules. So I think it's a fabulous move if this can be implemented.
Debbie Goenka, is that convincing that the customer now knows what's required and so the customer is the new watchdog?
I think that's stretching it a bit too far. I think the customers typically ask how much is it going to cost them, when are they going to get possession, and so on and so forth. Nobody looks at even the sanctioned building plans or the conditions on which the plans have been sanctioned.
Shouldn't they?
I don't think that's true at all.
Of course they should do it, but the larger issue here is that simplifying the process is something that nobody can object to. The problem with the whole thing has been corruption and the manner in which clearances have been given. Now we have buildings coming up on mangrove, we have buildings coming up on forest land, we have buildings coming up in places where they have no right to come up, and this has been happening openly all along. And this is the kind of thing that worries people like me. This implementation and monitoring of conditions.
Simplified clearances will actually lead to more of all of this, flouting of the norms, buildings coming up and mangroves, more of the environment suffering?
I think transparency is the greater need rather than simplification. And as long as people know what is happening, that is really the important thing. In the private forest case, there were people buying lands on flats and buildings which have come up on forest land. It was stuck in litigation for almost 10 years, and we all know what happened at the end of the day. But the problem is that these are the kinds of things that have to be avoided, and how you actually simplify the system without compromising on environmental norms and open spaces and all the other regulations, that is critical. I live in an upmarket housing complex in Powai, and I have a situation where a fire engine can't enter my own building.
Well, fire engines can't enter most buildings.
Yes, so that is the problem that we are actually dealing with.
Let's just go one part of it.
That's about implementation of an existing law.
Exactly the point I'm making.
Implementing the laws and eliminating the discretion. And that's what this change actually does.
And one more thing, that we should all know that what was called the forest land, actually the state finally lost its appeal, and they finally had to understand that all these would not stand. So if at all the people have suffered, it is also the developers that have suffered for no fault of theirs. It was never forest land to start off with. All approvals were gotten, all titles were checked, and after that suddenly out of the blue came a forest recognition saying that this is forest land, and the developers as well as the consumers suffered. Finally, at least justice was done, and people have started getting their homes in that place.
Gautam, we spent some time on this. Go ahead, tell us what your opinion is.
So the devolution of power is welcome at any level, and Like Debbie said, it's about increased transparency where the focus should be. I don't agree that the consumer, the end user, is more empowered in any way. At the end of the day, whatever the norm is, they're able to access it in a transparent manner. They're able to monitor it irrespective of what the authority governing that particular aspect is. I think the question here is there a compromise, and is it a, the government has this very tightrope kind of balancing act that they have to focus on, and is just a question of whether that compromise is, how grave is it, there are parameters. The environmental parameter has to come first, has to always come before the convenience parameter, but the inconvenience had built up so much that this move was kind of forced, and it's about just assessing whether that balance has been maintained or not.
Yes. Let me just add on to that point. Very simply put, you cannot solve a problem by throwing more people at it. Likewise, you cannot go ahead and see that something is enforced just by seeing that there are more and more agencies monitoring that. So I think rightfully said, very welcome move. Giving power to the state and to the ULB is a good move in the right direction, because they are the ones who are going to give the approval. They are the ones who are going to watch over what is being done. And let me add out here to the point where Rohit said about the consumer. Genuinely today, 90% of the transactions that take place, or 95% of transactions that take place in Mumbai space are all through banking financial institutions, and these guys go through the fine-tooth comb of every single approval that one has gotten. They have their own empaneled architects, they have their own empaneled lawyers, and these guys go through every IOD condition itself. So when a consumer is buying in and when he gets a loan from any of these financial institutions, he has a definitive, sure title on the property.
Well then, if that's the case, now going forward, if we have a simplified, system, Boman, and if it is, in this case, the BMC that has to continue to monitor, let's be honest, they haven't done a fantastic job of monitoring up till now. Now they have to monitor, like the minister told us, it will be up to the local government to monitor it going forward. Do we have the risk, and I'm not saying the entire industry is going to do it, do we have the risk of more builders building outside of these rules, taking perhaps longer to sort of get caught? Because while you're right in the fact that a lot of buildings right now are in financial services, but there are a lot who are not.
Again, just because some people who I don't even call developers, who are actually, people who come together just to build a building and make some money, which is not what, CREDI affiliated developers or MCHI CREDI affiliated developers normally do. What we do is we go ahead and create our own governing guidelines, and all these developers are genuinely good developers who are actually doing a great job. These guys will continue to abide by the rules. By throwing more and more regulation at them, all you're doing is stifling the industry, which is what we're trying to clear out. And Faye, it is a known fact that when the people who are capable start doing the good that they can, you will automatically weed out or reduce the power of those who are doing it illegitimately, and then you will have issues like, people getting caught up in a situation. I am firmly of the view that our ULB, that is to say Mumbai Municipal Corporation or the TMC, is very capable of taking care of this entire gamut of approvals, and as a matter of fact, it will be approached a lot more intelligently, a lot faster, and a lot better.
Let's be honest, Boman, I want to bring Debbie in here. This is a municipality who has not got its DP right for several months, and they've been trying, and they've been given repeated extensions to get the development plan of the city right. The city of Mumbai has gone without a plan for a really long time. Debbie Goenka, are you convinced that the BMC will be able to handle this responsibility?
Absolutely not. And in fact, the fact that even the coastal zone management plan for Mumbai city has still not been finalized. There are CRZ violations galore. There are buildings, as I said, coming up in mangroves and within 50 meters of mangroves in violation of the law and in violation of the court order. And all these are plans approved by the municipal corporation. And I find it astonishing to be told that the builders will follow the law, their own guideline, when they don't follow the statutory laws of the country and of the state and of the municipal corporation. We have demolition orders being issued by the court. We have the municipal corporation making repeated application to the environment ministry for relaxing buildings or post facto regularization of buildings that have been constructed in violation of CRZ. And I'm astonished to hear that the builders of CREDI and MCHI will follow the law. In fact, several societies in Hawaii have had to file cases in the High Court to stop the builder from constructing on open spaces. And that is really what is going on.
Let's get a response to that.
You can't go ahead you can't go ahead and make a blanket statement that developers will not follow the rules, okay? I think that's totally unfair. Come down and check some of our projects, and if you find something wrong, we'll get out of the business. Okay?
Absolutely,
But
I would love to do that.
Make a blanket statement.
I would love to do that and come and check some of your projects, yeah.
Frankly,
So come and do that.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I will do that.
look,
Okay?
in keeping this.
But you can't, I don't think you can go ahead and make a blanket statement putting all developers into one bucket.
I would say that.
It's not like question, they have vested interest in this industry, and I don't deny that.
Okay,
I don't deny the fact that there are vested interests. I don't deny that. I don't deny the fact that there are
Development means.
all right. Ravi Goenka, you might be a little unfair here, but go ahead, finish your point, and then we get a response to it.
I think the point I was trying to make is that the laws are not being followed, the statutory rules and regulations. I think it is wishful thinking to be told that they will follow their own internal guidelines, which nobody seems to be aware about, what kind of guidelines
Boman?
are followed.
We've had this in all industries.
Which buyer knows which guidelines are being followed is a big mystery to me.
No, see, so Boman,
Let me answer that. Let me answer that for Debbie. I said that today all transactions are financial institutions, vetting each and every document with their own panel of lawyers, their own panel of planners, and they go ahead and check everything out. So 95, if you look at the quantum of development going on and where the violations are taking place, I can put it on record to say that sometimes there is a interpretation issue where the government decides to freeze its hands, right? Today, with the empowerment of the ULB, with the fact that ease of doing business is being given so much importance by the state, with the fact that the entire government machinery is looking at simplifying, they're not taking anything away. Debbie, you heard the minister say, stringent and punishable, right? The point is, if you can point out that there has been a violation, and if you can prove it, you should go ahead and, punish the developer concerned. And we say it in CREDI, we say it in MCHI CREDI. Those that do not follow guidelines will not be allowed to continue to be a developer under the CREDI banner. We've said it before. Now, if somebody goes out and violates, or there's an interpretation issue, and you ban somebody before it's even proven, it's unfair.
So, Boman, are you telling me that of all of the builders within CREDI, there is nobody right now that has problems at all with their projects?
Am I saying that? I'm saying you look at the quantum of development, look at the interpretation issues where people get held up, and then make a fair statement, right?
I would say how many builders have been hauled up by CREDI who are members of CREDI for violation?
We have a customer grievance cell, and over there also we bring up these issues, and you'll be happy to know that certain of our chapters are doing extremely well. We have 124 chapters in the cities, and we have 24 state chapters, and a large portion of these have started moving towards that. Then you'll be happy to know that CREDI has moved towards a Clean India movement, whereby which our Kochi chapter has taken up and has started making presentations to all our chapters, and we are pushing forth the entire wet garbage maintenance at the source itself, which saves about 3,000 rupees per ton to the ULB concerned, so it doesn't have to move garbage from one end to the other, and then we're creating manure or soil for that particular project itself. A lot of good work is going on. I'm sure we're not saying it loud enough, or we're not being able to spread the message loud enough, but we will, and that's the time I'm sure that you will hear that developers associated with us are genuinely those that will build the future of the cities that we work in.
Boman, I asked you a very simple question. How many members have been kicked out for violating building codes and building laws and
exact numbers?
Just give me one example.
Exact numbers.
Well, just give me one example in Mumbai.
Okay, let me put it this way, that there have been developers that have been asked to leave and they have left.
So just give me one name.
I will not give names.
Oh, that's so secret, is it?
Well, why should I? Why should I malign somebody on TV?
That's not malign. If you've been violating the law and been kicked out,
Gautam Kipni, do you agree that members of CREDI will be able to self-regulate, or at least the builders will be able to take up these simpler norms and actually execute them now because they're easier to maintain and they're easier to follow?
Yeah, with due respect to the other panelists here, I don't think we're going about debating the right way. I don't think the debate is whether builders are honest or dishonest, or whether they will be able to maintain their honesty over some time after devolution of power. So the question really is our local bodies, and we're only looking at MCGM, one of the largest local bodies in the country, are they going to be capable of handling this power? They suddenly have been empowered to say no. We know what the ability to do, no. not give permissions means in this country.
It's come down to just 23 things of address.
Two examples.
Gautam, just let me point out something out here. Just by putting more and more people on the job, by getting one more body formed, you're not giving any kind of system or you're not giving any kind of process to something that needs to be done. By allowing the ULB itself, where clear guidelines have been put as to what has to be done, when you can spell it out that one tree for so many square meters, stop, your sewage treatment plant should be of this nature, your ground cover should be such, you're in a better framework to be able to govern it. When that is done, I am telling you the ULB is absolutely capable. I'll go on record to say this. Our municipal corporations are extremely well equipped with people, with equipment, with tools, everything available for monitoring this. And I want to add one more thing. Every good company also makes mistakes. We've had a very large automobile manufacturer that seem to have flouted certain rules. He is paying the price for it and they take responsibility for it.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that the entire automobile industry is
But that example is a very bad example. After they got caught, they took responsibility, not on their own.
Well, they got caught. Number one. Number two, you cannot brand the entire industry itself as bad. Some agency or some company has done that. You cannot just take away from the credibility of the entire industry.
There are two questions here. One,
Change tracks a little bit.
okay, Rohit, 1 second. One second. So there are two questions here. One is, do the local municipalities, and while we talk about the BMC, it is the largest and the richest municipality in the country.
And all corrupt as well. So
all of the municipalities across the country have the bandwidth to handle this responsibility. And the second question is that of corruption on the local level. Rohit Gera, you yourself have accepted there's corruption on the local level. If you empower these local bodies with more responsibility, will that give rise to more corruption?
No, it won't, and I'll tell you why. Because the norms now are not discretionary.
Correct.
The most important thing is that when you have discretion, you can have corruption. Okay? Here
So
you
if
can
you
find
don't
RTI.
if you don't get your environment clearance, who do you go to then?
Well, there's no question now in what I'm envisaging in terms of the new situation. It's not an option to not get it. With your development permissions, with your commencement certificate, the conditions that they define. Look, already in Pune, for example, if you have more than X number of apartments, you have to do a sewage treatment plant. All projects have to have solar water heating. These are the norms which are already implemented in cities like Pune. Now, when they come to inspect at the time of occupancy certificate, you have to show them, you have to get a certificate from the solar manufacturer that it's installed. The sewage treatment plant has to be installed, right? So these things are already taking place. All they are saying is these new norms, whether it's 9, 14 or 23, are now added to your commencement certificate. You have to satisfy them at the time of the occupancy certificate that these features and these factors have been complied with. That's all.
Here's my worry. We have a lot of people who call us on this very show day after day saying, hey, you know what, there was a commencement certificate and when we reached the point where the BMC had to hand out or the local municipality had to hand out an occupation certificate, it got stuck, the OC has not been given out. From what you're describing to me, we might actually have more of those cases on our hands where at the OC they stall it.
Faye, you're looking at this too singular. There's something called ease of doing business, which has again specified what exactly are the conditions that one needs to comply with before going ahead and applying for the OC. In what time frame that OC will be got, what are the rights or what are the things that one has to check. Things have gotten a lot better manuscripted today. They are put in order. If they are followed, you're going to face a much better time. Please accept it. Please understand it. And please give it some time to come into play, because that is when you see the benefits of it. We cannot expect something that was going on for the past 15 years to be changed overnight, but every step being taken by our state government is a step in the right direction. I think we should encourage it. I think we should applaud it, and I think we should stand by it.
Gautam,
quickly, it's gotten better, but for a set of stakeholders. The only concern is, has it compromised another set of stakeholders, which is, those who are environment watchers. I want to give you two quick examples. I followed the MSW management, municipal solid waste management and handling rules very closely, its evolution and how it has gone and tried to improve itself year on year, and it has failed miserably. We are terrible as a country at waste management, and everything is knee-jerk, and DNR is a good example. When it comes to the MCGM, its own ability to penalize people under such a strong law of the MOEF itself, They have no teeth. They can't go down and penalize a single person who's a violator as far as waste management is concerned. How are they suddenly going to become very well equipped to do it is a question. I'm not saying they can't do it, but look, it's not happened in the past. The second thing that you can look at is the open spaces policy, something that deals with property, but property which is public property. The MCGM is all but washing its hands of this public property, saying we don't have the manpower, we don't have the imagination, we don't have the funds to deal with it. 1,200 acres of open space exists in the city under MCGM control. Out of that, a good third of it has gone under your adoption policy and your caretaker policy, which itself has been criticized so heavily. There's no new policy, there's a policy paralysis in place. They're washing the hands of their own assets. How are they going to come and look after somebody else's assets and then keep monitoring it year on year? I mean, it's, let's not forget
the evidence doesn't suggest that the municipality will be able to handle a responsibility like this.
I don't agree with this at all.
Okay.
I don't understand.
We don't understand what exactly is we don't exactly understand, or we've not been told what are the steps there, right? Let me put it on record over there. As far as the BMC is concerned, they're absolutely got them in control to be able to kind of control the entire whatever points have been put down out there, because the entire OC rests with them. By throwing it away at another agency and saying, just because an environmental body was in place, you're not taking corruption away. Let me tell you that also. Just by bringing more and more people into the fray, you're only making it more difficult to complete a project, and thereby adding to the cost of it. You're not simplifying it. This is simplification. Simplification will lead to better results. I think genuinely you may be unaware, but as far as the OC does not come, and nowadays with the ease of doing business where the specification is very, very clear, you will know what are the compliances one has to do, and in that the environment clearances also play a very important part. If there are 23 conditions, 23 conditions will be complied with. There will not be one that will be circumvented, and I can put on record also.
Debbie Goenka.
Well, I think this is a pipe dream. The conditions always remain on paper. We know what happened when all these conditions were there. There have always been conditions put both by the municipal corporation and by the environment ministry and by the state government agencies. How many of these have been followed is something that everybody knows in practice. And I will definitely take up Mr. Gera's offer to come and inspect his building projects if his offer is still open. And I'll be quite happy to come back and tell you how many of those conditions have been actually implemented on the ground and how many of them remain on paper.
Rohit Gera?
I'll say it for Rohit, 100% will be complied with.
100% will be complied with. Okay.
And I can see that Boman is not making that offer for his projects. He's
Mr. Goenka,
quite happy to speak for Rohit Gera.
Mr. Goenka, you're more than welcome to come and, go be my auditor on all my compliances, and I'll happily do it because I'm already doing it with all my financial institutions. I'm doing it with most of my clients who are coming and buying my high-end apartments. 100% compliance is what we go for. Please believe me, it is just a thought. If you just keep making statements like, we know what is happening, you're talking of an era gone by. This day and age has changed. You don't hail a taxi anymore with your hand. You dial a phone and it comes to you. You just get onto an app and it comes to you. The world has changed. Let us at least examine what has been changed. Let us see how it works and then decide if we want to continue damaging the system.
I think let's have an app to remove corruption and then we'll talk again.
Why not? We're all for it. As developers, we're all for it. We'll be beneficiaries of it.
Absolutely. Cheers to that.
Alright, Rohit Gera is back with us. Debbie Goenka wanted to take you up on your offer, Rohit, and come and visit your projects and actually check how many environment clearances and environment norms you followed.
Sure.
Alright, I have another question.
Would you like to fix that appointment offline? Or?
Yes, offline. No, we can do it right now.
Alright.
Certainly. Happy to have you over.
Okay, thank you.
Alright, and we'll have Debbie Goenka back on the show to give us a report on what he finds. But I have another quick question for both of the developers on the panel. Boman, I'll start with you.
Sure.
One of the reasons why the industry was asking for the ease of doing business was because if you bring down the time it takes to get permissions, you can actually bring down the time it takes to finish a project, and that brings down the cost of construction. At what point, if that does happen, will you be able to pass on that benefit to the home buyer?
Debbie, let me point out to you just something that MCHI CREDA has done today. We've signed an MOU with the government of Maharashtra to give 5,69,000 homes, which are in the 25 to 80 meter category, which makes them, as per the National Building Code, affordable homes in the MMR region alone. And we've not asked for one benefit from the government except quicker clearances. Okay, one. Do you know what this will do for the entire industry? I've just made a short note.
I have a
Let me just tell you. 28 developers, 146 projects, 5.69 lakh square feet, 5.69 lakh affordable homes, 3,700 lakh square feet of built up area, direct employment to 7,65,000 people, and 9,100 lakh man days, and 110,000 crore of investment will take place. Please tell me if this is not something that is going to benefit a city the way it works. We can keep on talking about developers of the past who have done some wrong to the city, and we can then please turn the page to the present day developers who are affiliated with CREDAI and MCHI CREDAI and see the kind of good work that they do.
I have one question for you.
Sure.
These 5 lakh, over 5 lakh affordable houses that you're talking about, with what I understand, an average space of 600 square feet. What is the pricing of
depending on which part you're in, depending on what rule backs it, you'll be happy to know that there's something, being worked with the government right now with something as simple as police housing. Today you require to give police, the police man that serves your city a proper home, and towards that the government has taken cognizance and they're working with private developers because they understand the need for a developer to be in the fray, and they're working for in terms of policies for that, and they've come up with a policy for the Mumbai region. They're coming up with a policy for MMR as well.
These homes that you're building,
I'm coming to it.
Yeah.
So basically, how do you go ahead and bring down the cost? A, you bring down the time because that is where interest on the money is there. B is you reduce the number of compliances, you make it simple, you make it punishable. Yes, exactly. 3 is you go ahead and improve on the FSI of the area itself. Let me give you some numbers. We've said this before as CREDAI developers. 37% of every revenue rupee that comes from a consumer goes to the government. When you can reduce this 37 down to 20, you've taken 17% off the cost and you've given it to the consumer. I will make one more statement. The CREDAI affiliated developers have actually made a statement on record that if you can continue to give us, if you can give us approvals within the 30-day time or even the 60-day timeline, we will be able to work out a 10% drop in our prices and pass this benefit directly on to the consumers.
just 10%. So 10% to the market value wherever it is.
I want to ask you, Faye, if 10% isn't enough, 100% also will never be enough. We're just going to keep going
this is my question.
Story.
When we're talking about an average of 600 square feet, is that 600 square feet of carpet, 600 square feet of super built up, 600 square feet of built up? What are we talking about?
Wow. Over here, Faye, you should also allow me to just speak what exactly makes for your area. Your carpet area is then assisted by elevators, is assisted by staircases.
We all know that.
Is assisted by please let me finish. Is assisted by firefighting system areas, is assisted by an entrance lobby. All these areas are paid for by developers. We pay premiums on all these areas. As such, every developer will quote to you what the carpet area is, and he'll quote to you what the carpet area rates are. At the same point of time, if everybody in a particular market is speaking one language, there is no way you're going to be able to speak another language and speak to your customer.
Which I get. I'm buying all of that. So I'll tell you what my question is. Roman, I'll tell you what my question is. My question is this.
Absolutely. We speak carpet area, we speak carpet area, we give you rates on carpet areas. Now we quote them in square meters also.
Fair enough. If we're talking, say for example, anywhere in the city of Mumbai, Ghatkopar, Chembur, maybe even closer to Thane, 600 square feet, if we're talking about carpet, that's actually a home of close to 1,000 square feet in super built up. Is that fair?
Yes.
We're talking about close to 1.5 crore rupees, 1.8 crore rupees. A 10% discount on that does not make it affordable housing.
Let me ask you something. Why are you so ingrained on the size, right? You take an automobile today.
Because I'm going by your definition. I'm going by your definition of what is affordable housing.
Please let me help you. I have got an automobile that transports 4 people. It could be a Rolls Royce that could be super large in size, or it could be a Maruti 800 that was very small in size. Wait a minute. Design has allowed us to continue evaluate newer ways of making the sizes a lot more livable, at the same point of time a lot more cheaper, or unit prices being there. Today you could buy a 1-bedroom hall kitchen which is right in the city of Mumbai in a place in Andheri at under 1 crore rupees. All in cost.
Okay.
Is after 37%.
My question to you is, how are you defining affordable housing?
Let me take the 10% issue. Let me take the 10% point that you raised.
Under 1 crore.
Under 1 crore
in Andheri.
Rohit Gera, go ahead.
So that is affordable.
On the 10% piece that you're asking about, keep in mind What we pay for is we first pay for the land, and then we wait for a year, 2 years, 3 years for the approvals.
Or 20 years or 30 years to pay the landowner.
Well, okay.
So my fundamental question
Leaving the sarcasm aside,
Yes.
and the extreme situations aside, for the most part, right? You pay for the land, maybe you pay in some installments, you have 1, 2 or 3 years while you're waiting for the approvals in the erstwhile situation. Really what we're talking about is the holding cost on that. The land quantum works out to 25 to 40% of the total for like a city like Pune, Bangalore, for most of the cities, Mumbai excluded. Okay? So when you talk about 10% of the entire selling price, this works out to about 40% to 30% of the land value, as a percentage on the land value, which is really the holding cost, which is what we're passing off. If there are further benefits which are offered in terms of reductions as far as the taxes are concerned, we can then pass that off. Okay? If the premiums are reduced, that can be passed off. But you can't expect a developer to pass off anything more than what he's currently getting by virtue of increasing the efficiency in a system.
Okay, fair enough. My question to the both of you is still this. If we are now, if according to both of your arguments, this new norm, the system that we see for environment is faster, it's better, it's more efficient, it's likely to be better followed. That's what the two of you said. If that's the case, there is definitely a cost benefit there for you. At what point will you be able to pass on that cost benefit to your buyers?
Immediately on knowing exactly what comes in print. Today we are speculating over a statement made by a minister which is on TV, over some articles that have appeared in the papers that kind of broadly spell it out. Let it come down, let rubber hit the road, and we will definitely come back on this show and tell you exactly what the advantages that we can
So
pass on.
once we see these rules actually come into play and being enforced, after that you'll be able to tell us how long it will be before you can calculate what that benefit is and tell us how much you'll be able to pass on.
And on this show if you call us on it.
I'll definitely call you on it. Robert Gera?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Debbie Wilka, this is a fair argument. I want to bring you back in here. Obviously, there is a need for housing. There's a need for affordable housing. There's a need for speedier construction. So, someone is going to have to make room for this. And if the government does manage, and if they do manage to bring in a system that's more efficient, that aids better construction, faster construction, more efficient construction, we do need homes.
So I started off by saying that I have no objection to a simplified, better and more efficient system, but I think it has to be an honest and transparent system. And given the fact that the Maharashtra government itself is now targeting salt pan lands for affordable housing and so on, and today salt pans are CRZ1, the question arises how much more of the environment are we going to sacrifice for obliging builder friends who are now thronging the corridors of Mantralaya.
I just want to comment on it. We've been hearing about these salt pans forever and ever. I don't think it's become a reality. There's more fluff to it than reality. Secondly, there is no appeasement of the developer fraternity out here. I can say time and again, all we've done is we've appealed for even our requirement of, our points put across to the Honorable FM have been more for what can be done for the consumer to be able to make homes affordable to him and available to him. And let me put on record one more thing. Mumbai has been facing the brunt of not taking action fast enough, and that's why you saw the slum proliferation of Mumbai. Today, when the slum authority or our CEO decides to take this bull by the horns and make changes, there will be enough naysayers. But at the end of the day, I want to say that this man is doing a fantastic job. The government is doing a fantastic job. Genuinely we feel as developers that the face of the city will change, which means a better life for you, me and next in line.
We have an essay in the studio right now. Gautam?
No, it's
One second, Rohit. Let me get Gautam's response and I'll come.
One is I really feel that it is the MCGM that ought to speak on behalf of the MCGM and tell us whether they are able to manage this or not, and if they are able to manage this, why they are not able to manage so many other aspects of their functioning smoothly. That is one. Secondly, how this private space is going to help the public space, and whether this 10%, even if it's 20% decrease, is going to move a slum resident into a high-rise, I have my doubts. At the same time, yes, it's welcome, like Debbie said. Any move to kind of make the whole process easier, which transfers the cost to the end user, is very welcome. I'm still a skeptic on this.
Rohit Gera?
Hey, look, I think let's be clear about the stand that we're taking. We are not averse to protecting the environment. Okay, all we say is please be clear what you expect us to do. Please tell us the same rule that will apply time after time after time, and not be left at the whims and fancies of one group who interpret their role and responsibility in one way versus another group who interpret it in a different way. Okay? That ambiguity is what leads to delays. That ambiguity is what leads to the whole set of problems. By all means, put in whatever environment protection rules you want. You want to say all buildings need to have a greater degree of renewable energy to be utilized. Put it. There's not a problem. There's a cost associated with it. Your customer has to pay it. We'll follow. That's not an issue. Make it 1%, make it 10%. It's irrelevant, really. At the end of the day, please, all we're saying is, by all means protect the environment, but please ensure that the rules are simplified, they're standardized, and there's no discretion.
Debbie Goenka, I want closing statements from all of our panelists right now. Debbie Goenka, that's a fair argument, really. Just make it simple, don't change it. Don't bring in policy volatility, because we are talking about projects that take 4 or 5 years to execute. Halfway through the project, if you change what the land is meant for, you change the rules, or you change your FSI ruling, that becomes really difficult to execute then. So just simplified rules that are stable, that are clear to follow and easy to comply with. We might actually wind up in a system that's easier and that's actually good for the environment. Do you foresee that possibility?
See, first of all, again saying the same thing, I have no problem with simplified, transparent, honest procedures and enforcement of whatever has been cleared. Whatever conditions have been put in have to be implemented. But the fact remains that infrastructure in Mumbai is at complete breaking point. We don't have clean air, we don't have enough water, we don't have place for dumping our garbage. Traffic is a mess, railways are in a mess, and so on. And we keep on talking about giving higher FSIs without the wherewithal infrastructure to match the higher FSI. We can talk about Manhattan having FSI of 40, but Manhattan has the infrastructure to sustain that 40 FSI. That has been always a problem. And again, the question is, how much is the consumer actually going to benefit at the end of the day with higher FSIs and a more flexible regime? If you say that affordable housing is, for a one bedroom is less than 1 crore, is it more than 90 lakhs? And is 1 crore going to become 90 lakhs, or 90 lakhs going to become 81 lakhs? And is 81 lakhs then affordable? I mean, those are the questions that still need to be answered. I don't think anybody who is working in Mumbai city and on his job can afford to buy a house in Bombay. Maybe at the end of 40 years of his life, possibly he may be able to afford a 1 bedroom in Mira Bhinder or whatever. But that's about the ground reality today in terms of affordable housing.
I think affordable housing is more a means of the financing that is available for the affordable housing. Today everybody can buy a car, not because they suddenly have 5 lakhs extra in their pocket, but because they can pay it in parts, and they pay for it as they go along, and they get tax breaks for it. Third, Mr. Goenka, I'm sure you've been through a time where the developers were exactly the builders that you called them. Today we take great pride in calling ourselves developers. I'll take a minute out here to just repeat to the entire audience out here. CREDAI is working on so many initiatives, including skilling. We're going to skill more than 1 lakh young men and women in only the construction-related industry. Towards this, work has already started, and more than 10,000 people have already been trained. We are working with the Clean City movement, where we've spread from one Kochi across to the NCR, gone down to Coimbatore, come to Thane, and we're signing an MOU with the Thane Corporation. This is what the new face of the developers is. Give us an opportunity. I promise you, maybe in 3 months to 6 months time, once you know enough, you'll be standing and in a way supporting us as well.
I'll take 10 seconds to tell you how I spell developers, and that is DEVILOPERS.
Okay.
Spelling mistake.
Rohit Gera, quick response before we wrap up this discussion.
No, I think, look, I understand it's not just Mumbai that's got an infrastructure related issue. It's all over this country. We're talking about rapid urbanization, faster than, people moving in faster than we can keep up in terms of the infrastructure. That's the reality of India today. It doesn't matter. Find a solution. We don't claim to be a part of the solution. All we ask once again is that tell us what the solution is, stick to it, let us go about doing our jobs. As far as the issue about affordability is concerned, if in Mumbai, for example, if a 1-bedroom apartment is costing 1.5 crores, for example, it won't reach that price if there isn't somebody buying it. Please please understand, developers aren't holding and sitting on.
So
I'm not saying that.
you're talking about affordable housing.
No, we build homes, Rohit, in the MMR region that sell for as low as 25 lakh rupees, add all kinds of stamp duties, etc. Add all kinds of stamp duties, etc. on it, is still selling at about 29 lakh rupees, and these are available within exactly 1 hour of a train ride from right outside your studio.
Where exactly is this?
Where is this?
I said MMR.
Gautam, give them quick closing remarks.
I think it's a very interesting discussion here, and I think the one point missing is we're looking at environmental aspects and we're very concerned about compromise on that front, but at the same time we're looking at ease of doing business, very important if you want to progress very rapidly. I think we're missing one component, that is the social aspect. I think the quality of life of a person is not just determined by where he stays, it's also around that area, and the social indicators, like he said, need to also be looked at. Public infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, public transport needs to be looked at very strongly. It needs to match all these and keep up and keep pace.
All right. We're going to have to wrap up this discussion, but this is where we stand on MagicBricks Now. It is always good to have the ease of doing business for the industry because there is a demand for homes. People need homes. The more supply we have, it's possible that the prices will also rationalize, especially in our cities. But having said that, if we look at the way the municipalities across all of our cities have managed their cities, it's been abysmal. They have not managed to do their jobs. In Mumbai, we have no clean air, we have no clean water, we have no public spaces. The air quality in Delhi is terrible. Traffic and air quality in Bangalore is terrible. There is no water supply. Pune is not too far away in that matter as well. There is no evidence that suggests that these municipalities have been able to do their jobs well. We welcome a situation where they're able to manage these problems, but they have not been able to. We are all for the ease of doing business, but we're going to keep a very close eye on the way our cities are managed in terms of urban development. We're going to take a break. I'd like to thank all four of our panelists for joining us on the show.
You have to give me a minute out here. You're putting municipalities to do what environmental clearances, what environmental air quality is, that really is not going to be possible till you restrict the number of automobiles that drive on our roads and build better infrastructure.
Or you manage traffic. If people are not standing in traffic idling their cars, then you wouldn't have so much pollution in the air.
Absolutely.
If you didn't, every one of our cities have
allow the ceiling to be built across the city.
Every one of our cities have dump yards. Every last one of them. The problem we faced in Mumbai, and I live right next to that problem, it's personal to me, the city is clouded in smog every day. It's not a problem that has been solved despite promises from the highest level of government in the state. There are no CCTV cameras. There's no firefighting abilities across the dump yard. The dump we know on this channel, all of the dumping has been moved to Mulund. There's a fresh problem coming up there.
I just want to ask a very simple question. I've asked the municipal commissioner this question, that why don't you spend that 12,000 crore rupees that you want to build on that harebrained coastal road project and put it in upgrading the suburban train system? But the municipal corporation is willing to waste thousands of crores of rupees on roads that won't work without investing in what is the lifeline of Mumbai city, which the majority of the commuters use. That is the reality of life in Mumbai city.
It's true we need infrastructure, it's true we need public transport. We have to encourage more people to start using public transport and not driving their cars. Boman, do you still have an argument to that?
So I personally agree with you, and over here I just want to say there's a chicken and egg situation. We're all talking about what comes first, whether we should go ahead and build infrastructure first or then make housing first. Let me just tell you one thing, the problem is real. The problem is real. We will find a solution. It took this nation one father called Mahatma Gandhi to get us from where we were to where we are. If we put our heads together, I assure you we're quite capable of solving all the problems. The only thing is, let's come together, let's put our heads together with one common cause.
Nobody's saying no to that.
Of course we are not. We're coming together. Even this is a platform where we come to, exchange ideas and get our points of view across, and we're always open to listen.
All right, we're always open to listen. I really have to wrap up this debate at this point. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. If as a viewer you have an opinion, feel free to get in touch with us. Our contact details are on your screen right now. We're going to come back with a quick look at the headlines. On day 4 of the Make in India Week, CIDCO signs its first MOU for 11 villages will pool to 3,500 hectares of land for a new city. That's on the other side. Don't go anywhere.